Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. If this is your first time tuning in, my name is Adrielle and I am currently narrating a story of my life dating back from January 2016. In the previous episode, I wrapped up The Wilderness Season 2 and this is the first episode of The Wilderness Season 3. I'm going to start from the month of June 2022. But before I get to that, there is some things that I do want to talk about that I forgot to mention in the previous season. And so here it goes. So the first thing I forgot to mention was back in 2021, after I got back to Atlanta from Jersey, I would have dreams, kind of like on and off. I would have dreams of Brandon and Caitlin being together. So some of the dreams would be me, logging into Instagram, checking Brandon's page, and Brandon would just have a bunch of post about Caitlin, about how much he loves her. She's the love of his life. He doesn't know what he would do without her, yada, yada, yada. I remember having one dream where me, Caitlin, Brandon, and some other people, we were in my living room in Jersey. And Brandon just kept on talking nonstop about how much he loved Caitlin, that Caitlin was his world. She's the love of his life, yada, yada, yada. So I had several dreams like that back in 2021. I forgot to mention. And then 2022, March 1st, I found out that Brandon and Caitlin not only were still together, but they got married and there was another kid involved. So I forgot to mention that. There was another thing I forgot to mention. So I was going to talk about. I don't remember right now. So I'm going to start off with June 2022 and here it goes. It is June 1st, y'all. When I woke up, I had a dream. Now, this dream is very important. I'm going to talk about the dream. So, in the dream, y'all, I was in my apartment, okay? I was in my apartment. I had gotten some mail. Someone had given me my mail. Now, one of the letters in the mail was something that had to do with like a pregnancy. So, I opened it up. In the dream, the letter was saying that I was pregnant. Now, I was confused because I wasn't sleeping with anyone. And not only that, y'all, I'm a virgin. So how can I be pregnant? So I remember leaving my apartment and coming out of my apartment building. Now, here's the thing that's interesting. When I left my apartment building, everyone I saw around me in my environment was people I went to high school with, which was weird. So I'm seeing a bunch of people I went to high school with, and there's one girl in particular I was cool with in high school. I remember telling her, like, hey, I got a letter in the mail that I was pregnant. I'm not sleeping with anyone. I'm a virgin. How is that possible? I was just so confused. I'm like, do you know where I can go? Yada, yada, yada. So I remember just telling her, and just being so confused about the entire situation. So I remember just looking at the letter, and in the letter, the address of the place to go to, it had something like an address like 800. Like 800 was the address, 800 and something. So I remember like, you know what? Let me try and go to the address that's on this letter. It was a walking distance from where I was. So I remember walking, and I get to like a lawyer's office or something like that. So I get there and I see this lady at the front desk. So I say to her, I said, hey, I got a letter from this address about a pregnancy. I'm kind of confused by it because, there's no possible way for me to be pregnant. Is there any way that there's a mistake, or can I find out who this father is? Now, mind you, also too, in the dream, I was not showing that I was pregnant. My body did not feel weird or anything. I'm like, there has to be some type of mistake. So this lady tells me that, we can't share information about the paternity because it's private information. I'm sorry, ma'am, I can't help you. I look at her sternly and firmly and I said to her in the dream, ma'am, I am a virgin. If I am pregnant, that means somebody raped me. So I have to know who the father is. So she looked at me and she saw that I was serious. She was like, okay. So she brings out this folder And she's just going through papers. And then she says, oh, the father picked up his papers. Now, here's the thing in the dream. A father picking up his papers from this office meant that he was waiving his rights of being a father. So in the dream, when she said that the father picked up his papers, meaning that the man who got me pregnant, he had already waived his rights of being a father. So she tells me that the father, picked up his papers, and she mentions his name. It's a guy I went to high school with, but here's the thing. The guy's name is very, it correlates with Nami. I'll just say that. The guy's name, who was the father in the dream, it correlates with Nami. So in the dream, I'm like, oh my goodness, this guy got me pregnant? What? I would have never guessed. So in the dream, I'm like, wait, I was never alone with this guy. So we're just going to call this guy Red. I was like, man, I was never alone with Red. Red and I never was in the room by ourselves. Anytime we were together was always other people. I never dated Red. I don't remember Red ever touching me. So in the dream, I'm just so confused. Like, how did Red grape me? I'm just so confused. So as I'm in the lawyer's office, right? Another guy I went to high school with, he's coming into the office because he's trying to pick up his papers as well. I see him. He has on this black bubble jacket and a black do-rag. I see him. I stop him. I say, hey, Blue. We're just going to call him Blue. Blue, I need to talk to you. And he kind of like, get off of me. I'm like, no, Blue, this is serious. I need to talk to you. So I take him outside. I said, hey, Blue, I just came to this lawyer's office and I found out that Red got me pregnant and he waived his rights of being the father. So Blue starts like chuckling and I'm like, what? Why is he chuckling? He said, that was his plan from the beginning. He always had plans on doing that to you, basically graping me. And I'm like, what? He said, yeah, and he had other plans for other women as well. He was like, yeah, like that was his plan from the beginning. So now I'm confused. Like, why would Red do that? Then this is what I say to myself in the dream. I said, oh my goodness, I'm about to meet Brandon. Brandon is on his way. If he knows that I'm pregnant, he's not going to want to date me. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? So I start pacing back and forth in front of the lawyer's office outside. What am I going to do? I'm going to meet Brandon. If he finds out I'm pregnant, he's going to break up with me. He's not going to want to date me. And that was the end of the dream. So I wake up and I'm like, why am I having a dream that I'm pregnant? Some random man I went to high school with, he got me pregnant and he did it through graping me. And then I found out he was someone who was devious and had plans on graping me. Well, he did grape me, but other women as well. So I'm just like, why am I having a dream? So here's the thing, y'all. As I'm in my bed, that's when the Lord brought to my memory a pregnancy dream I had all the way back in March 2013. Now, I need to talk about this dream because it goes together. So March 2013, at this time, I was 19 years old. I was still attending Rutgers University. I had a dream. So in the dream, I woke up from my sleep. I woke up, I put my feet on the ground. Once I placed my feet on the ground, I looked at my stomach and my stomach was big, meaning that I was pregnant. So in the dream, I'm like, oh no, I'm pregnant. How did I get pregnant? No, I'm still a college student. No, something needs to happen. No. So I remember leaving my room, going to see my brothers, and I'm like, hey, y'all, I'm pregnant, but I'm still a college student. Like, what am I going to do? I need to do something about it. And my brothers were kind of looking at me like, child, that's your business. So then I go to my parents' room. I see my mom sitting on the side of her, sitting on her side of the bed. And I said, Mommy, I'm pregnant. What am I going to do? I'm still in college. What am I going to do? And my mom says to me, hey, you made your bed. Now you have to lie in it. That was the end of the dream. Now, mind you, y'all, 2013, I didn't know anything about like dream interpretation or whatever. But I remember when I had that dream, y'all, I was scared. Now, mind you, I wasn't having sex, still a virgin, but the thought of me being pregnant while I'm in college, that really scared me. Now, the year after, 2014, was when I graduated, right? So I graduated and I thought about the dream. I'm like, man, why did I have a dream that I was pregnant in college? It doesn't make sense because, I graduated, there's no pregnancy. Even I brought the dream up to my mom. She was like, hey, maybe it means that, you should just be mindful of the choices you make or the people you surround yourself with or something like that. But I never understood why I had that dream back then in 2013 and even 2014 after graduating. Now, fast forward to June 2022. The Lord brought that dream into my memory. That's when it hit me. I said, oh, that pregnancy dream I had in 2013, y'all, it wasn't about me. I was symbolic for Caitlin in that dream. So that helped me to interpret my dream that I had that morning. So in the 2013 dream, God was letting me know that I was symbolic for Caitlin. Now, mind you, I didn't know Caitlin in 2013, right? So that dream I had in 2013 was going to be for the future. June 2022, that dream I had June 1st, I was also symbolic for Caitlin as well in the dream. So in the dream, June 1st, 2022, I get pregnant. And I find out it's a guy I went to high school with, but his name correlates with Nami. That was God's way of confirming to me, y'all, that Nami was Lily's father. Okay? That was God's way of confirming to me that Nami was Lily's father. Not only was he Lily's father, but he had waived his rights of being the father. Now, later on, I find out how he was able to waive his rights of being the father. So also, too, that was also God's way of confirming to me that Nami was devious. Remember in 2019, I had a dream that Nami was cheating on a test. I had a dream that Nami was on punishment. And while he was on punishment in my bathroom, he was facing the wall. He was smoking a joint. And I'm like, yeah, there's something about Nami that's not adding up. There's something like devious or evil about him. That was God's way of confirming to me in this dream. Because remember, in the dream, this person I went to high school with, Red, he raped me. And also, Blue, who I went to high school with, he told me that Red had plans on raping other women. So that was God's way of letting me know that Nami is devious. That's one. Now, 2, in the dream, I said, oh my goodness, I'm about to meet Brandon. If he finds out I'm pregnant, he's not going to want to date me. That confirmed to me that Caitlin was fully aware that Brandon was not Lily's father, but she decided to pin the baby, meaning pinning Lily on Brandon. And she was fully aware that Nami indeed was the father. Y'all, when that whole interpretation came to me that morning, I was pissed off. Completely pissed off. And the reason why I was pissed off, y'all, they dragged Brandon's name on social media. While Caitlin was fully aware that Brandon wasn't the father, and Nami was fully aware that Brandon wasn't the father, that indeed he was the father, he allowed his brother to be dragged. So this happened, 2016? And then Brandon got back with Caitlin in 2020, right? So that's 4 years. At this time, y'all, this is 2022. So that's 2 years after that. So 6 years, y'all. So you mean to tell me within those 6 years, Nami and Caitlin didn't have the heart to tell the truth? Y'all, see, I need to calm down. Because these feelings are coming back up. You mean to tell me, honestly, I'm going to be real, y'all. I was like, Nami is a trashy brother. He should not be called a brother. That's not a brother. That's a Judas right there. That is a Judas. You saw what your brother went through and you couldn't say anything? What? Like, now forget about Caitlyn. Caitlyn, she's a Jezebel, whatever. But Nami, this is your brother. Not once did you think to like, okay, I know I'm the father, let me make things right. None of them decided within those 6 years to make anything right. They allowed Brandon's name to be dragged in the mud. And now, like, y'all, anyways, I'm like, God, you need to deal with them. Deal with Nami, deal with Caitlyn, because they're very stupid for what they did. Like, y'all, I had this righteous anger in me. I'm like, Nami's very stupid. Caitlyn's very stupid. I knew she was stupid from the beginning, but I was just so pissed off because I was like, no, the truth needs to come out about Nami and Caitlyn, and this whole mess can't keep going on. So I remember praying that, Lord, deal with Caitlyn and Nami. For all the evil that they did, deal with them. June 2nd, that morning, I had another dream. And I'm going to talk about this dream. So in this dream, y'all, I was in my grandmother's house in Nigeria, my dad's mother, right? I was in her house in Nigeria, and I was with the guy that looked like my oldest brother. Like, he had my oldest brother's entire form. But in the dream, he wasn't my oldest brother. So we're going to call him fake brother. So in the dream, I'm with fake brother in my grandmother's house. And he's telling me how he is going to visit Caitlyn this weekend. That he's flying to Oklahoma to visit Caitlyn. And he just kept on talking nonstop of how excited he was to see Caitlyn. Like, hey, I'm going to see Caitlyn this weekend. I got my flight. I got my rental car. I'm just so excited. He just kept on going on and on and on and on and on about how excited he was to see Caitlyn. Then I stopped him in his tracks and I said, wait, isn't she not married? Because in real life, y'all, Caitlyn and Brandon were married, right? So I say to him, like, isn't she not married? Now, here's the thing. He doesn't respond to me, not because he's dodging my question, but because he honestly did not hear what I said. He was so consumed with the joy he had in seeing Caitlyn over the weekend. He told me that he texted her and she told him that, hey, yeah, when you fly in, when you get in, let me know so we can plan something, yada, yada, yada. So the scene switches, right? The scene switches. And in this scene, me and fake brother are in the neighborhood of my house in Jersey. We're walking. Now we're walking because we're walking to the friend's house that's going to drop him at the airport. So as we're walking, y'all, he keeps talking about how excited he is to see Caitlyn. So we're walking. The next thing you know, he goes on Facebook and he sees all his friends going in on him on Facebook. And it had something to do with Caitlyn, right? It had something to do with Caitlyn, but he was just complaining to me like, man, these friends of mine, they're just going in on me. They're like fake friends, yada, yada, yada. So we get to the person that's dropping him at the airport. He introduces me to the person. I'm like, hey, my name's Adriel. The person, introduces themselves as well. And so I say bye. And then he says bye to me. And then him and the person that's taking him to the airport, they start walking. And then they start talking about Caitlyn and the friends on Facebook. Now, here's the thing. I wanted to hear the conversation. As they were walking, their voices were fading, so I couldn't hear what they were saying. The next thing you know, y'all, the scene switches again. So the scene switches to me being in a room full of people. Now, in the dream, these people were on their phones. They were on Instagram, and they were all like, oh my goodness. So they were all talking about what they were seeing on their phones. So I remember saying to someone like, hey, what's everyone looking at on their phones? Like, what's on social media? And then someone says to me, oh, Caitlyn aired out Brandon. I said, what? They said, yeah, Caitlyn called Brandon a rapist. Caitlyn called Brandon, I'm not even going to say the rest of the stuff that Caitlyn said in the dream about Brandon. But basically, Caitlyn had put up a post about Brandon and she was assassinating his character. and everyone in the dream that's in this room, they were looking at it and just they couldn't believe it because they were all in shock. The next thing you know, Brandon comes into the room, and when he comes into the room, everybody's looking at him because they just read everything they saw about him on social media. So they're looking at him, and he kind of has a feel of why they're looking at him, like Caitlyn did something. So he comes into the room. They're all looking at him. The next thing you know, Brandon grabs this black bag, this black duffel bag. It says, "Man, I'm going back to Atlanta." So I say to him, "Hey, are you going back to Atlanta for good or to visit?" He's like, "No, I'm going back for good. I'm out of here." And then the scene switches again to me being at a gym and me looking for fake brother to find out how his trip with, his trip to Oklahoma and his stay with Caitlyn, how that went. And that was the end of the dream. So now, y'all, I'm going to interpret that dream. I know there's a lot of dreams going on, but bear with me. So in this dream, the person who was fake brother, that person was symbolic for Nami. So when Brandon was with Caitlyn, Nami had his own infatuation with Caitlyn going on, or interest or whatever. So that was what the Lord was trying to let me know in the dream. But I really want to focus on the part where Caitlyn was blasting Brandon on social media. So that part of the dream, that was God's way of letting me know that when this thing wraps up between Brandon and Caitlyn was going to embarrass Brandon on social media. She was going to spew lies about him, assassinate his character. Everybody's going to see it. But here's the thing, too. In the dream, when Brandon got into the room, he knew that people were talking about him because of Caitlyn. He grabbed a black duffel bag and he said he's going back to Atlanta. In the dream, the black duffel bag was symbolic for Brandon's issues, struggles, adversity, darkness, whatever struggle, negativity, bad things he had going on. That duffel bag was symbolic for that, and that he was going to go back to Atlanta. So when Brandon gets back to Atlanta from Oklahoma, he's going to bring a lot of his issues, a lot of his baggage, a lot of his trauma with him. So that was what God was letting me know. Now, the reason why Caitlyn was blasting Brandon on social media, I find out the reason later on, not in June 2022. So that is that for that dream. Y'all, there's many more dreams I had about Brandon and Caitlyn's relationship in the month of, actually, I want to say the entire month of 2022 and 2023. There's a lot of dreams, a lot of revelation, a lot of insights, a lot of things that the Holy Spirit dropped in my spirit as well. I'm going to just stop the episode right here, and then I'm going to talk about what else happened in the month of June. So if you're liking A Likely Story, please like, comment, and subscribe, and please share my videos as well. And until next time, bye.